We are Cop Connect, a group of lifelong Reds with one vision: to connect Liverpool fans everywhere through a spirit of friendship and togetherness, to build the world's most diverse, most inclusive Liverpool fan group. Join our growing community on our Cop Connect Facebook group, on Twitter and Instagram, and our website copconnect.com. Cop Connect, the ultimate Liverpool fan experience, brought to you by Liverpool fans, for Liverpool fans. Copconnect.com.
Hello and welcome to the Liverpool Connection podcast. I am Daz. I've got Steve with me, and our special guest today is a former Royal Marine, a motivational speaker, the world record holder for single leg amputee at the 10K, and he wrote a book. He's co-author in collaboration with Phil Reed for the book You'll Never Walk. It is Andy Grant. Hi Andy.
Thanks Hey Andy. How are you doing?
We're good. Early in the morning for us, and as you were just talking, you just got finished with a motivational talk for primary school. How did that go?
Yeah, really good, thanks. It was a little bit different to what I normally do. I normally do a kind of 45-minute presentation about my whole life, really. But this one, with it being Remembrance Day, it was just more focused on what Remembrance Day is, why we wear a poppy, the importance of it to me, and why I think it should be important to everyone, and just the kind of 15-20 minutes of a few different classes just explaining again the history of the poppy and why Remembrance Day is so important. And the children seemed to understand that. They were quite young, primary school, but it was enjoyable. It was good to try and I think I'm one of the lucky ones that returned home from war, so I think it's important to me to remind people and make sure that people understand the sacrifice that was made by others.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think the poppy has kind of lost its appeal with some people?
Possibly, maybe, but I was quite surprised actually that the children in this particular school actually knew why we wore a poppy. Obviously, the poppy, for those who don't know, it was the only flower that seemed to bloom on the battlefields. Weeks and months after the soldiers had died, the red poppy. That's why we wear it. And a few of the children actually knew that answer, which I was quite surprised with. And I don't know whether it's particularly this time with here in the UK. We're currently in lockdown. I've not seen that many people wearing a poppy. Hopefully it's just down to the lockdown, but I don't know, maybe I look at it a little bit with military tinted glasses on, and normally we make a big deal of it. We go down and have a huge remembrance parade, and obviously there's a lot of poppies on show, so I don't know. I think this year's been a bit hard to gauge really whether the poppy is losing its appeal or whether it's just a case of living in strange times.
Yeah, true. Steve, I'm going to let you go first this morning.
Okay, great. Andy, thank you for coming onto the show. We've been looking forward to having this episode with you for a little bit now. And before I get started, I want to wish everybody a great Remembrance Day over there across the pond. And also to my fellow veterans, I know Daz is a veteran as well. We wish everybody a good Veterans Day here in the United States, and to please remember all those who've come before us and help, keep our countries free in the past. So, we normally start by asking, how did your love affair with Liverpool Football Club start? I know you're there in Liverpool, but everybody comes to the club a different way, even, as a kid. And also, if you can tell us about your first Anfield experience.
Yeah, I think growing up in Liverpool, football is a bit like a religion, Liverpool or Everton. My dad is a huge Liverpool fan, and that was it then. I just supported Liverpool, and that was that. Always playing football, in the park, and, constantly looking up to my heroes at the time, playing for Liverpool. I used to spend my 6 weeks holidays going to the Liverpool training ground, Melwood, which is just closed actually. Mm-hmm. But I used to get the bus, from where I'm from in Bootle up to Melwood, and just spend my 6 weeks holidays just trying to, get a glimpse of the players, which was always fun. And yeah, from what I remember, just always been a huge Liverpool fan, always wanting to just absorb everything about the club, the players, the manager, the fixtures, the result, everything about it. And my first game was in 1996. I was 8 years of age, and it was a team who we played called FC Sion, which was in the Cup Winners' Cup at the time. And I think we won 6-3 on aggregate. Robbie Fowler scored a hat-trick, if I remember rightly. And I just remember my first experience with my dad, and you walking into Anfield itself. I don't really remember much about actually the walk to the ground or anything like that. I just remember the walk up the little set of stairs, and then you just see the green of the pitch, you see the lights, and as a 8-year-old, the atmosphere just hits you and it just takes your breath away. You look around, and 8 years of age, I've never seen that many people before all come together to watch this game of football. The grass seems a different type of colour. I've never seen grass like it before with the lights, and it just gives you this feeling that you think, wow, this is a pretty special hobby to have on your doorstep that you can maybe go to once a week. And that was my first experience of Anfield, and I think that's when the love affair properly started then, and I've never looked back really.
The unfortunate thing about the travel ban is I was going to take my 13-year-old son to his first Anfield match in October, so now we have to delay that. But I hear these stories every time we have an episode about people coming to the games when they're little, with their dad or their grandfather. And it's like, I can't wait to have that experience with my own son, and just show him what it means to me, but to really establish that lifelong, love affair like you have and like Daza has as well.
I think that's, you make a great point. I think sometimes people from Liverpool, I think we take it for granted that we have this place on our doorstep, and you forget that, Liverpool is such a worldwide brand, and why shouldn't likes of yourself and your son get to experience that? And I think we sometimes take it for granted that it's on our doorstep, we can go there and it's we can experience it once a week, and it's just a special thing to experience. And again, I think sometimes when you get used to it going every week, you forget how special it is that first time to go with your loved ones, your son, go with your dad, and it's a special moment. And look forward to buying you a beer when you're over here today, when you get to experience it.
I'm great you said that, because, we do record these shows, so I'm going to replay it back to you when we get over across the pond, and I'll take you up on that offer. And hopefully my son won't be old enough to drink yet either, so I'll take his.
That's fine by me.
Daza?
So Andy, everybody, here is the book. Absolutely amazing. There's the back. Shirtless. So Andy, I definitely want to start off actually telling everybody that the book did really move me. The first chapter, actually titled Mom, is kind of what I went through as well. I lost my mum at 15, cervical cancer. So it really resonated with me, and I teared up when I read the whole thing as well, because my mum passed away pretty quickly as well. And she had a blood clot in her leg. So she got her leg amputated. So it really hit a chord with me. As my wife can attest, I had that, little cry. Actually, I reread it last night. And I was just like, good God, this sounds like, what I went through, because my mum was my best friend as well. But tell us a little bit about that as well, because it must have been like therapy for you, to talk to Phil and get that out there.
Yeah, when I sat down with Phil to write the book, I was very conscious that I didn't just want it to be a military book. Yeah, I've been blown up in Afghanistan, and it's quite a strange thing to have been blown up in Afghanistan. But to me, it was a case of wrong place, wrong time. And I know tons of guys who've been blown up in Afghanistan. When I sat down to write the book, I wanted the book to be about my whole life, growing up in Liverpool and the things that had happened before and after being blown up. And one of the biggest talking points in my life, which I still talk about a lot to this day now, is when I lost my mum, because I think that definitely shaped, my whole life. So for me to sit down with Phil and really open up about losing my mum, it was like therapy. It was. I still remember now. We used to meet up in a pub. We'd order a couple of beers, and Phil would put a dictaphone in front of us. He'd ask me a few questions, and then I'd talk for an hour or so. And then on this particular chapter, when we were talking about my mum, I think we both just sat there crying our eyes out. Two guys in a pub with a beer, just crying for an hour non-stop, just talking about it. And I think it was important for me, because I always joke and say, you can get blown up in Afghanistan. You know, you can go through anything in your life, what I've been through, but by far still the hardest thing I've ever been through is losing my mum at 12. So the fact that, you know, that made the first chapter and me speaking about what that was like to lose my mum, it was really important to me. And again, I think in many ways, losing my mum at such a young age, it built so much resilience in me, so much drive to want to achieve something with my life and hopefully make her proud, that I think if I hadn't lost my mum at 12, I don't think I would have went on and achieved anything that I had. So I think to sit down and really open up about what it was like losing her at 12 to leukemia, and to have it, you know, like you say, the first chapter in the book, I think it was a good way to start the book, because I think people maybe would think that it was just always going to be about Afghanistan and getting blown up. But actually, like you say, it starts off with me being a 12-year-old, you know, losing my mum. And I think it was, I'm really proud how Phil's portrayed it. And yeah, it was just such a tough time in my life. You know, I don't think, well, like, you know, it's losing, I think, your mum at any age is tough, but especially as a young boy, and especially when I was so close with mine, it was a real tough time in my life. And it's something, again, I talk about all the time now in my motivational talks.
Yeah, like when I was reading it, and then, you know, after your mum passed away as well, you know, you could, horrible to say, but I was the same as well. At school, you could get away with murder, you know, because everybody looked at you like the poor kid that lost his mum. So yeah, I you know, I was a good lad up until, you know, my mum passed away, and then, you know, a few years of just being like a knobhead, you know, because I couldn't come to terms with it. Well, I mean, you know, I'm 50 now and I still can't come to terms with it. You know, you just can't. But like I said, I really appreciate, you know, you going into detail about your mum, because me reading it was just, you know, again, just made me feel a little bit better that somebody else, you know, kind of went through the same thing.
Yeah.
Now I want to.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's another thing. What I'm really pleased about the book is because it's, you know, not a lot of people can relate to what it's like to get blown up in Afghanistan, but a lot of people can relate to, you know, losing someone that you love. And I think that's what I want the book to be about, to try and make it relatable to as many people as possible. And I think, again, by speaking about my mum and trying to be as open and honest as I could be about the struggles, I think that's, you know, the amount of people, like you say, I think for men to speak about these things isn't quite as normal as it should be. But the amount of guys I've had message me and email me and speak about similar things, what we're talking about now, Daz, with, you know, you losing your mum, it's been really uplifting to know that the book has helped in some ways and made people realise that they're not alone.
Now I actually want to go back to when you know, you're 10, 11, 12. When did you do your trial for Liverpool?
I must have been around 11 years of age. Yeah, and I was playing for a Sunday league team, and we were winning the league most seasons. I played left back at the time, and I was always a good footballer. I was always, I'd say, one of the best in the team. But I was kind of a bit of probably a bit like a Jamie Carragher, kind of no nonsense. I didn't really go above and beyond. Not like you see Andy Robertson now flying down the wing. You know, I was quite defence minded. I'd kind of, you know, with my tackles, I was quick, but then I'd get to the halfway line and just pass the ball, and that would me then I'd stay put. So it wouldn't have quite worked in the modern game. But back then it was, you know, I was a good footballer. Well, I thought it was. And then I got trials to go to Liverpool's academy. And although I played well, it was just, you know, clear from the onset that it was just a different level. And it's only kind of when you experience playing with players who are a lot better than you from all around the city and other areas, that's when you realise how good or maybe not so good you actually are. And it was a case of me being, you know, a big fish in a small pond to then being a small fish in a big pond very quickly. So although it was a really proud moment for me, you know, my mum was there, my dad, my granddad, and they're sitting in the actually where Liverpool's new training ground is now. They're sitting there watching me on the AstroTurf under the floodlights. Although it was a really proud moment for me, it was pretty short-lived, as it was pretty obvious that I wasn't up to the standard to play for Liverpool.
being from Bootle, and obviously Jamie Carragher, I believe, is from that area as well, right? So it's funny to hear people say, yeah, I played like Jamie Carragher, and I'm sure that everybody has that sense of pride from that area that he's such a legend for the club now.
Yeah, for me, and I'm lucky now that I'm actually good friends with Jamie. I see him most days and stuff in the gym, and we text. I'm a good friend. So for me to have that with him now is amazing, because growing up, he was a hero. He's not only is he a Liverpool legend, what he's done for the club, but he literally lived down the road. I used to spend my 6 weeks holidays, like I say, obsessed with football. I would go and knock at his mum's house and ask for an autograph, and then years later we're now friends, which is crazy to think. But I think from the area we're from, a real working class area, it's quite rough. It's quite, you get a tough upbringing in Bootle. And, to have someone like him who's come from the same streets that you grew up on to make it as a Liverpool legend, it definitely gives you hope to know that, people like us, can achieve something.
I would imagine that it's actually, even more of an honor that he was a one-man club, right? He never left anywhere, and now he's such a great ambassador for the club. He's always playing in the Legends matches. I had the luxury to play against him a couple of times, and he has such pure enjoyment, for the club, and such an advocate for everything Liverpool. It's from my perspective over here, it's just great to see somebody that's local, stayed with the local team, and then it's such a huge part of the community after their playing days are over. Yeah,
I mean, now even if you don't know too much about football, everyone knows about the work he does in the community. He's got his 23 Foundation. Yeah. He's always, helping and support local businesses. He does so much stuff that you don't even hear about. It's all to do with the local area. And he's one person who has just never forgot where he's come from. And again, with him being a one-man club, it gives him that bit more of a, wow, this guy actually knows what it is to play for Liverpool, to represent Liverpool. And he's not forgotten it. He still doesn't live too far away from where he's grown up. And I think just what a great role model to have. You speak to him now and he's absolutely obsessed with football. You talk to him about what you've been up to the day before, and he's just kind of like, oh yeah. And then you mention football, and then his eyes light up, and he's right on it. So just a really great guy and really humble, and yeah, just a privilege to kind of have him from the same area where I'm from.
Yeah, I think I'm still paying off my loans for the auction items that I won back in 5 years ago. So
yeah,
I think I was one of their golden sponsors. So there's a lesson to everybody out there: don't drink and then be part of a silent auction.
Yeah, that happened to me a few times.
Well, it must have been, surreal for when Jamie came to your house that day, while you've got the cage on and everything, and then come in your living room, your hero. You must have been like, holy crap.
Yeah, it was. So in 2009, I joined the Marines when I was 17. I'd served 6 months in Iraq, and then a couple of years later, it was time to deploy to Afghanistan. I'd been in Afghanistan about 5 months at the time. I had 6 weeks left to push when I was blown up. So I'd not been home for 5 months, and then I went straight, obviously, to hospital. I was in hospital for 3 months, and then my first weekend home, I was really smashed up. I looked like death. I was in a wheelchair. I was bandaged head to toe. I had this huge cage on my leg, which was holding everything together. And then my dad wheeled me into my local pub. It's a really kind of old school, old man's pub in Bootle. And, all the kind of old guys in there, and everyone was, trying to buy me a drink. But I was so ill. I think I had, half a pint of beer, and I just felt like sick. I wanted to go home. It was nice to get out the house, but, just when you're so ill, you just want to sleep. And so my dad wheeled me into the pub. We sat there for an hour, and everyone gave me well wishes. And then I went home. And then the next morning, I was due to go back to hospital. It was Monday morning. And again, when you're so sick, all you seem to do is sleep. So I'd had a full night's sleep. I went downstairs and I fell asleep again on the couch. And there was a knock on the door. And I'm thinking, who's knocking at 9 o'clock in the morning? It was quite a bang on the door. I'm thinking, who's knocking like this at 9 o'clock in the morning? And then my dad opened the door, and I just heard a really scouse. I mean, you may think my voice is scouse, but I heard a really, all right, lad, you're all right. And I was thinking, who is this? And then to my more surprise, my dad said, yeah, come in. And I'm thinking, I'm sitting here with just a pair of boxer shorts on, who's he inviting into, my living room? And then Jamie Carragher walked in, and I was just like, fucking hell, like, what is going on? And Jamie said, did you not know I was coming? And I said, no, I didn't have a clue. I'd at least would have put some clothes on if I knew you were coming. And he just sat there with me for half an hour or so and just asked how I was doing. And I think that says a lot about the man, because I don't know if you remember, in 2009, we nearly won the league under Rafa Benitez. Manchester United beat us by 4 points in the end. So they were in the middle of this, Champions League run. It was when we beat Real Madrid. And we just beat United, I think, as well, or we're about to. 4-0, I think it was. So he's in, a pretty intense time of the season, and yet on his way to training, he just popped by my house and sat with me for half an hour, and it gave me such a boost to know that, I've got these horrific injuries going on, but yeah, back home, people still cared about me. Jamie Carragher, even just the fact that he knew who I was such a big lift, and it gave me that boost to go into rehabilitation, to think, right, come on, I need to get better.
I wanted to ask you a question, Andy, because you joined the military, at 17. That was similar. I joined at 17 as well. But you had an opportunity. I think and your dad a firefighter, right?
That's right, yeah.
So I read that you had joined the military for some, band of brothers, the camaraderie and things like that. So was there not the idea ever to try to follow in your dad's footsteps? Because, the firemen are a pretty close-knit group and have that kind of atmosphere as well, right?
Yeah, totally. I think looking back now, I think what I would have liked to have done is, if I didn't go down the Special Forces route, I would have liked to have maybe done 10 or 15 years in the Marines and 10 years or so in the Fire Brigade. I think your pension can switch over from the military to the Fire Brigade here in the UK. So that's something I've definitely thought about. And I think just the fact that my dad, did have that brotherhood and that type of job, I couldn't see myself doing a 9 till 5. I'd saw my dad and I'd heard the stories from my dad, and when I saw the challenge with the Marines, then that's what kind of led me down that route, I think.
Yeah. So when, I guess when you get into the military, and then you kind of get around all these guys, and I guess that may have been even more of an impetus for the type of fitness levels that you're attaining, special forces and things like that. After you got injured, how was that decision to then, go push yourself to try these to get a world record and to start running again, obviously, with prosthetics and things like that? Can you kind of share your thought processes into how you came into those decisions?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so here in the UK, I think Special Forces, it's made up of, I think, 70% of Marines. So I kind of knew a lot of people who went down the Special Forces route. And I'm a big believer in, you are the company you keep. That old saying, show me your 5 friends, I'll show you your future. Mm-hmm. And I'm a big believer in, surround yourself by good people. So in the Marines, I was surrounded by very highly motivated individuals who kept themselves in good shape. And I kind of could see myself destined on that road. Whether I would have had what it takes to be in the Special Forces, I don't know, but I would have at least liked to try. And then when I got injured and I realised that I'm now an amputee, and that kind of goal of staying in the Marines and Special Forces had gone, it was a lot for me more mentally to get my head around, to know that I'm not this elite soldier anymore. I'm not this Royal Marine Commando. I'm now just an amputee. And I think you're totally right in what you say. My mindset was then kind of shifting is, what can I do to get back to being me? What can I do now to feel like the old Andy who likes to push himself? And I think there was a large part of me who just wanted to not so much prove people wrong, because I don't think anyone really doubted me, but it was more just for myself to prove that I still can be this kind of highly motivated person, be that as an amputee. And one of the best feelings the two greatest things for me personally of being the fastest single leg amputee in the world over 10K was, one, when I tell people how fast I run 10K, I think normally they think, well, how fast does an amputee run 10K? Maybe an hour or something. And then when I say it's 37 minutes, the response is normally, well, I can't even do that with two legs. So I like the fact that it's not so much a disabled record, but it's more of a, wow, that's a pretty decent time for anyone. And the second thing that I love about the 10K record is back to your question, is I had friends out the Marines and friends who were Special Forces who were messaging me saying, wow, I can't even run that fast. And I think to get that recognition of my peers, of my brothers in arms, of, wow, get that credit, that for me was the greatest thing about the world record. It wasn't the fact that I'm the fastest one-legged man or I'm a world record holder. It was my old friends out the Marines who I kind of, I kind of compared myself to so much. Were kind of reaching out and saying, fair play, Andy, that's some time. I think their recognition meant more to me than anything else.
Yeah, I'm imagine just getting just even staying in contact with your brothers, after these years, because sometimes time kind of separates people from your previous experiences. So that's a great outlet to be able to continue to share stories, and I'm sure you keep up with what they're doing and things like that. I know we started the show with you mentioned that you had been to a motivational speaking event, and I remember seeing a video of a radio show, and he started talking about writing the book with you, excuse me, and how motivating it was that you guys were having a good cry, right? And and he was surprised that he was crying when he's talking to you, trying to write a book, but he's the one getting some therapy, it seemed like. And so when did the process and say, hey, I need to share my story, I need to go out in the world and do these motivational speeches?
It was funny, actually. I kept a good relationship with all my old teachers. So when I left school and joined the Marines, they invited me back in just to do a talk about what it was like to join the Marines. So I kind of went in really informal, just jeans and t-shirt, and just spoke to the children about what it was like to be in the Marines. Then I got back from Iraq. Again, I came into the school, spoke a little bit about what Iraq was like. Then I got back from Afghanistan, done the same. And then I obviously got injured and done the same. So I'd been into a school 3 or 4 times, really informal, just chatting to the children about my experiences. And then one day I got a phone call from the school secretary, and she asked me to come and do another talk. I said, yeah, that's completely fine. Let me know when and where, and I'll be there. And she said, this time, can you wear your uniform and all of your medals? And I thought, this is just a really informal talk for 20 minutes. I don't really want to get dressed up in all my medals and uniform just for this little chat. It's, And then she said, oh no, this is in the local town hall in front of 800 people. And then I was like, whoa, hang on a minute. This is a big jump from 20 kids to 800 grown-ups. And I spoke with my old English teacher, and I came to kind of write a bit of a speech. And it probably was about 10 years ago to this day, because it was a couple of weeks before I had my leg amputated, which was the 25th of November, would be 10 years. So it's probably around this time, 10 years ago. And I went and done this speech in this town hall. And I was just trying to get across in the speech that, these children were about to leave school or were in the last year. And, who knows what will happen in life. Just like me, I'm about to have my leg amputated. Who knows what this will happen, what this will mean and what will happen. But, the importance of staying positive, surrounding yourself by good people, having a strong mindset and staying hopeful for the future. And I've done this motivational talk, and I got a standing ovation of 700-800 people, and I walked off stage just beaming with pride, really enjoying myself. And that was when I kind of the seed was planted, and I thought, what, I wouldn't mind maybe doing a little bit more of this. And then that's what kind of gave me the buzz for motivational speaking. And then as the years went on, I went on to achieve various different things, and the motivational speaking kind of grew and grew and grew, and I added more context to it. And then before I knew it, that was me then as a motivational speaker.
Let me ask you then, Andy, like the decision to actually, have your leg amputated must have been was it one of the hardest or just one of the easiest, where, because you didn't want to, just walk to the shops as you said, you wanted to actually, do something. So how did that come about with your mindset?
It was, without doubt, one of the hardest decisions of my life. And to be honest, it wasn't actually what you described then. It wasn't me wanting to have my leg amputated to break any world records. It was just me wanting to not be in pain anymore. I just wanted to be able to walk the shop with my dog, and that'll be it. I didn't have these grand plans to run marathons and climb mountains. I just wanted to be able to live a normal life, and I was just in so much. I wasn't in pain every day, but I just felt like my life was like Groundhog Day. One day I'd wake up and my leg would be okay, and I could walk around. Okay, I couldn't run and I couldn't do all the things I wanted to do, but I was thinking, what? I'm lucky to be alive. Just because I can't run, who cares? And then the next day, my leg would be so sore, and it would be bleeding, and it would get infected, and I was bedbound for the day. And then after 2 days, I'd be able to walk again, and I think, it's not so bad. And then the next day, I'd be bedbound, and my life had no consistency, and I'd just become more and more fed up. Round about that same time, I was going to the rehabilitation centre for injured soldiers, and I was seeing friends of mine who had lost their legs, and they were walking, they were running, they were getting involved in sport, they were learning to ski, learning to surf, and here's me, I still had my leg, but it was so badly damaged, I couldn't do any of these things that I loved. And in the end, I just become really frustrated that I wasn't living up to my full potential. And I knew I needed to do something to get my life back on track. Now, where the difficulty came was, it's a big decision. We're talking about chopping a part of your body off. So it's not as if, if you change your mind, you can say, actually, just stitch it back on. I think what made it even more difficult was my dad. Ever since I lost my mum, me and my dad are so close. He's my best friend even to this day. And my dad just didn't understand my reasoning for having a leg amputated. Now, you've got to remember, for him, he's a middle-aged man who he's never seen an amputee before, or apart from the Paralympics, maybe that's the only amputee he's seen. And he just couldn't understand why having your leg amputated could be beneficial anyway. Whereas me, I had the hindsight of I was with guys every day who were amputees. I could see that they were getting on with their life and this could be a good thing. So trying to explain to my dad why I wanted to have my leg amputated was quite difficult. And it was important for me to have his support. And I guess my dad was just trying to be devil's advocate. He was telling me about the negatives. So it was a real tough 6 or 9 months of, actually deciding that amputation was the right option. And once I did have the leg amputated, thankfully my dad was then fully on board. He was, really supportive. And once I'd made the decision, he was, right behind me. And the best way I can describe the amputation is, like you said before, with your question, Daz, that how hard was it? It was so hard that when I woke up from the amputation, I felt like the weight of the world had been lifted from my shoulders. All this 6 or 9 months of should I, shouldn't I? Is this the right thing? Should I be doing this? All those questions are gone. And it was kind of like, right, it's done now. You can get on with your life. So it was by far the toughest decision I'll ever have to make. But thankfully, it's proved to be the best.
Well, you had, 14 months rehab and then 25 operations? Because that's... You had operations before, but how many did you have, after you had the leg amputated?
After I had the leg amputated, I had one more. That was it. Done. And that was only my fault because I started hopping around a couple of days straight after the operation, which I probably shouldn't have. And I knocked the shunt that was in the stump. So they needed to get me back in, but it was only a quick one. But yeah, that just shows you that, before I had the leg amputated, I had over 20 operations trying to fix things. Yet once the leg was amputated, that was me then pretty much, back to normal. So it was just such a big decision because, again, there was no guarantee that the operation would work. And yeah, it was just a real tough time of knowing, because I guess if the doctor told you and said, look, you've got cancer in your little toe, if you don't have your foot amputated, it might spread, you might die, then I'm guessing that's a pretty easy decision to make. Whereas for me, one doctor would say, if I was you, I would amputate. Another doctor would say, no, I would keep the leg if I was you. So I think sometimes you want someone, when you've got to make big decisions in life, you want someone to make them for you. And I think this was a time where I had to make the decision myself, which was a lot more pressure, a lot more responsibility. And that's what made it that little bit tougher.
Well, I also read, Doc Lambert probably is a big part of your life. And then I was reading, he kind of knew, what the end result was going to be, where you were going to have your leg amputated, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was lucky enough to serve with Surgeon Commander Anthony Lambert in Iraq a couple of years beforehand, and we just got on like a house on fire and stayed very good friends. And he's very old school military. It's black and white and that's it. And he probably offends people sometimes because he is so old school, but he just says it exactly how it is, and it's kind of what I prefer. And when I first was injured, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, you should give this cage on your leg a chance and try the rehab, and it might, your leg can be reconstructed, etc." He was the only person who said, "I know you, and you will be better an amputee." But at the time, I wanted to give other people a chance, and I listened to other surgeons, etc. But I think with his experience and with him knowing me how he does, he knew that I wouldn't be happy just walking around. He knew that I wanted to be able to live my life to the full. So after 14, 15 months, when I rang him up and said, will you amputate my leg? He kind of had one of those "I told you so" moments. Although he didn't say it, I kind of knew that he knew all along that this is what it would come down to. And thankfully, he was the man who then amputated the leg.
Andy, I wanted to ask you a question because, kind of integrate the football back into the conversation, is that for many people, Liverpool is a way of life. It's, keeps their mind off other things that are more serious in life that's going on, any personal problems. I know for me, I look forward to those 90 minutes every weekend and just to get my mind off other things. And can you share with us, it's been 10 years since you had your leg amputated. Has football been a part of your therapy? And is that something that has really helped you come through some of the stuff that you had to live through?
Oh, 100%. I mean, even before I got injured, just being in Afghanistan, the stresses that Afghanistan brings, I would have the fixture list on the side next to my bed, and you'd be watching out for the fixtures, and I'd be ringing my dad. And although I'd be in the middle of Afghanistan, the topic of conversation was who have Liverpool got next and how do they play. So I think football in general has always, played a huge part of my life, and has been that escapism that, like you rightly say, we all need sometimes. I think Liverpool as a city, it's a very working class city, and there's people who haven't got a lot, but come that Saturday afternoon, they get to cheer on a pretty successful football club. It makes a huge difference, and it was the same for me. I think even more recently, it's probably the best example was when I wrote the book with Phil Reed. I got to know him, really well, and then I got to start going to match with him and kind of his friends. So for the past now 3 or 4 years, I've been going to match with a kind of completely new group of friends, if you like, and it just made me feel normal again. I don't feel like this Andy Grant, the ex-Marine, the amputee. I'm just Andy with all his mates who loves Liverpool, who goes to match once a week, and I think that for me is probably the best thing about it. Just that Liverpool Football Club has been the one constant. Despite the Iraq, Afghanistan getting blown up, the amputation, the motivational speaking, everyday problems that everyone has. Liverpool is the one constant. It's the one thing that you can always talk to your friends about. It's the one thing you've got to look forward to. You get to meet up with them once a week and have a few beers and watch them. And even better, that it's been quite successful over the past few years since Jurgen's been there. So not only is it a constant, it's a pretty fun constant to have in your life as well. So I think the role of the football club has been huge. It always has been, but especially for me these past 10 years, without doubt.
You did. You were on LFC TV as well, weren't you, with Gary Gillespie and Ronnie Whelan? I mean, again, you got to just walk through that door and then sit right next to two players that have actually worn that shirt. That must have been like another surreal moment.
Oh yeah, I've had many of them. It's been I think just through the motivational speaking, it's given me some fantastic opportunities, and I've got to meet all of my heroes now from being friends with Jamie Carragher, and then I've got to work with Robbie Fowler a few times, and I even started going to a gym with Steven Gerrard at one point, and had Steven Gerrard drop me off at my house, which was a pretty surreal time once. So I've been really lucky that I've got to meet a lot of the players, and more recently I've done a motivational talk to the England football team and became friends with Jordan Henderson. There was a great story about that, how he ends up helping me out to get a ticket for the Champions League final a few years later. So it's just, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. You know, my big pet hate is if anyone would look at me standing there with one leg and feel, you know, any sorrow for me as if I'm a victim, or feel sorry for me, because I feel like the luckiest person in the world. I get to go around, you know, doing these motivational talks. I follow, you know, the world's greatest football team, and lucky enough I've got to become friends with a few of them as well. So there's been so many surreal moments where I have to pinch myself to think that, you know, this little lad who used to, you know, jump on the bus and go and watch Liverpool train during the 6 weeks holidays is now kind of sitting there having a beer with some of these people now. It's quite bizarre.
You know, you mentioned, you know, Ronnie Whelan and David Gillespie. We've been fortunate to bring both of them over here to our Legends Nights in Austin. You know, we've had up to 9 legends come over the pond, and you hear their stories, but you realize that they're just as good of people as they were footballers, you know, and they give back so much to the community and are so open hearted that, you know, they donate a lot of their time to go around, you know, all of the UK really, and kind of share their stories and bring enjoyment to so many people. So that, you know, kudos to those guys that are still so involved with the club.
Yeah, it's amazing to see. And I think that's what, you know, Liverpool as a football club does. Like, you know, we started off talking about it. I think, you know, people who live in Liverpool and live and breathe it every day, I think sometimes you forget the pull that Liverpool has around the world and just how important these people are, that they go around and keep talking about Liverpool the way they do, because again, you forget just how much joy this football club brings to so many people around the world, and the fact that we've got such legends that can, you know, be fantastic ambassadors for the club is so rewarding, and it gives us hope for the future that we can continue to keep this legacy going.
One thing that I really do like is in the book, I love the quote that you put. They say you should never meet your heroes, and you said, if that's the case, don't have shit heroes. Don't settle for anything less than the best. I mean, that's one line that really came at me. I think that's pure brilliance, because why would you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's funny, I hear Jamie Carragher says the same thing when he got asked about I think his heroes, and he sums up a little bit probably how I feel is, I think with football, I guess it's with most sports, I don't know, but I think when you grow up looking up at a footballer, even if you're lucky enough to meet them years later, you've still got that awe about them of you thinking, wow, I used to, you know, scream your name from the terraces and, you know, shout at the TV of you, and now I'm standing here with you. And even though I'm, like I say, lucky enough became friends with Jamie and he is a completely normal guy, there is still that little bit of me where you're like, wow, you are my hero still, and it's pretty cool. And like I say, I think he's just from what he does in the city now, he's definitely cemented himself as kind of my hero growing up, and still is now.
Can you talk a little bit about the SSAFA for people that don't know what that is?
SAFA?
Yeah.
Yes, so SAFA was the military charity that basically looked after my dad. So when I was in hospital for 3 months, obviously my dad was at my bedside, and SAFA was a charity that set up a house which was quite close to the hospital where families of the injured soldiers could come and basically just spend some time away from the hospital, you know, and spend time with other families who were going through something similar. So for me, I tried to give a little bit back where I could and do various charity events and, you know, raise a bit of money where I could, because for me, I always say it was very easy for me to be in hospital. I had all these doctors and surgeons caring for me, whereas my dad was kind of, you know, just there having to watch. So the fact that the military charity SAFA was there to provide a home for my dad and a safe place for him to speak to other families going through similar things was really important to me. So they played a huge role in kind of supporting him when I was getting looked after.
And also, you also say sport saved your life as well, which is a big statement to make. And, you know, running I've heard it from a lot of people. Like, even Liam Gallagher says running, just gets his head straight, and just the mentality just makes him want to do better. So obviously it changed your life.
Yeah. I was always fit and active. Like I say, that's one of the reasons I joined the Marines. And I just really felt my mental health started to spiral out of control when I wasn't really into that routine of keeping fit. I think as humans, we're millions of years old, and I think you look back at what we used to do. We used to get up in the morning, we used to have to go and hunt. We used to have to go and, expend that energy and hunt for our food, or we were getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Either way, we were running and having to keep fit. And I think now, when we're maybe sitting behind a desk all day, or we're not getting our fix of getting out running, it can have a detrimental effect on your mental health. And I just found myself being in a rut of, not doing anything at all, really. And like I say, my mental health just spiraled out of control. I was drinking too much. I was gambling too much. Relationships started to break down around me. And I knew I needed to do something to get my life back on track. And I was lucky enough to become friends with a guy called Clive Cook, who introduced me into running. And I think when I picked up that running blade and started to run and started to set myself new goals, not only was I getting fitter physically, but I noticed my mental health really started to improve, and I was getting faster and I was getting more competitive. Those competitive juices were going again. And before I knew it, just my whole outlook on life became a lot more positive. I ended up obviously breaking the world record. I competed in Prince Harry's Invictus Games, won a couple of gold medals. And from then on, really, I've just not looked back. And to the point now where I'm in the gym, Monday to Friday, training 7 times a week, and I'm feeling fitter and stronger than I ever done before. So I'm a big advocate of sport and keeping fit, as it really did. It changed my trajectory in life, big time.
Do you have any current roles with the Invictus Games or the Paralympics? I know you still support them when their endeavors, but I didn't know if you had any kind of formal role with those organizations.
The Royal Marines have just recently made me an honorary colonel, which is I'm pretty proud to be. It's not really closed my career on the Marines. The fact that I'm now an honorary colonel, which was nice. But with regards to the Invictus Games, I took part in the first Invictus Games. I won my 2 gold medals, and then for me personally, that was enough. I used the Invictus Games as a bit of a springboard. I then went on to break the world record. There was a documentary made about me that was shown here in the UK on ITV, and then obviously the book. And without trying to sound a bit cocky, I thought to myself, who is going to benefit more? Me going back to the Invictus Games and winning more gold medals, or an injured soldier just making it to the start line? Who's it going to impact more? And I remembered back to the feelings I got at the Invictus Games of competing for the first time, and I thought, who am I to deprive someone else of getting that? So I'm, very grateful to the Invictus Games of the kind of platform it gave me. But once I'd won gold, I felt like that was a tick in the box, and then I kind of stepped away from that.
Yeah, I work with a gentleman. He used to be in the Paralympics. He also has a prosthetic, and you could just tell when he's on the phone, he has so much pride for having even been involved in those organizations and representing his country, the United States in some of the games. So, I couldn't even imagine, without sport, it just brings so much enjoyment to me, personally, but I know for other people to watch the events and both, the Invictus Games is such a great organization. I enjoy watching those events when they come around.
Yeah. I think we've seen more than ever now during this lockdown that we've had here in the UK. No one can go and watch live sport, and you just see how much it affects people. Sport is just such a huge role in all of our lives, whether you play 5-a-side, you play the odd bit of tennis, or even just getting in the gym and working out. It's making life tough not being able to enjoy those things. And I think we can all appreciate now sport a little bit more when things get back to normal.
Speaking of enjoyment, kind of, you had mentioned that you got to go to the Champions League final, and so these last 2 or 3 years have been amazing as being a Liverpool supporter. Can you kind of share what your experiences have been?
I think it would be another 2 or 3 hour podcast if we speak about all the good times. There's been so many under Jürgen. I think, I feel so spoilt, for every single week now I've been going to Anfield, and there's a group of maybe 10 of us that go to the game, and we just organise, okay, we'll meet here for a beer after the game, and we've not been beaten in nearly, I think it's over 3 years now at Anfield, and it's this kind of, we just became so lackadaisy with it. It's like, well, yeah, we're going to win, so we'll meet here for a beer afterwards to celebrate, and it just became this constant, juggernaut of not just winning but playing unbelievable football, and then the passion from the crowd just seems to seep into Jürgen and how we perform. And every single game, you're there, you're just getting entertained to the maximum every single game, and it's brought some amazing nights. And in particular for me was the Champions League run when we won it in Madrid. I was lucky enough that I got to go to the PSG away game, which was cool. Got to go to Barcelona away, when we beat 3-0. And then I was there at the return leg when we won 4-0. And straight away the next day, I booked my ticket to go out to Madrid and sorted my hotel. I just wasn't lucky to have a ticket in the ballot. And I've been texting Jordan Henderson all season, just, congratulating him after various games, etc. And then I think it was 3 days before I was due to fly out to Madrid, I got a message on WhatsApp. On Instagram. I didn't have his number at the time. It was all via Instagram. And he just messaged me and said, do you have a ticket sorted for the final? And I said, no, I've got me flights and hotel, but I've got no ticket. And he said, here's my number, just give me a call. And I think I just nearly had a heart attack on the train at the time that Jordan Henderson gave me his number. I got to London at the time. I was on my way to work to do a motivational talk, and I rang Jordan, and lo and behold, over the next few days, we chatted quite a bit. And then he invited me over to his, and he handed me over a ticket for the final. And I just thought, what a guy. Not only is he, an unbelievable footballer, he's the captain of this team that I love, and he's got that own, his values within himself, so that he remembered me from doing a motivational talk a couple of years ago. We'd stayed in touch, and the fact that, he must have had every man and his dog after him for a ticket, and the fact he, remembered me and chose to give it to me, it just made that trip that bit more special. I got to go over there with all my friends and had the best day ever in Madrid. And then, using the ticket Jordan gave me, got to go in and witness us lifting the 6th European Cup. I don't think, anyone, well, I'm sure there was everyone who thought their experience was so special. But I think for me personally, just to see the guy give me the ticket, then lift the trophy a couple of days later, it's just the best thing in the world. And then to see us then go on and continue playing the football we have done and win the league, it's just feel so lucky, so privileged to have Jürgen there and the crop of players he's got right now. It's just such an exciting time.
I was going to start my text campaign to Jordan Henderson today, so hopefully by the end of the season I'll get a ticket too. So,
you got a bus ticket.
Yeah, I'll get a ticket one way somewhere else. Hey, it's funny because you mentioned Jordan Henderson. Obviously, when he became captain, he got a lot of stick just because he's following in Steven Gerrard's footsteps, but I'm so happy for him. And I think most Liverpool fans are so happy for him for the accomplishments that he has, because as much as he accomplishes on the field, he's a captain material. I always told people a long time ago, like, there's a reason he's been captain at every level and at every team that he's ever played. There's something about him. And obviously you've gotten to know him a lot better and see those intangibles that he has as a person.
You just look at every manager he's ever played under, whether that's when he was at Sunderland coming through, or Brendan Rodgers, Hodgson. Like, everyone has always had him in the team. Even England managers. I think even the last World Cup, England made it to the semi-final, and I think there was some crazy stat where he was never on the pitch in a losing game.
No,
they were either winning or drawing. They were never behind when he was on the pitch. And it's like you're saying there, it's obvious to see that he's obviously a good footballer, but he must bring something to that team, to that dressing room, to that surrounding, that makes it impossible to leave him out. I think even the couple of defeats Liverpool have had over the last 2 or 3 years, there hasn't been many, but I don't think he's played in hardly any of them. So he's just absolutely a formidable player that maybe did struggle, taking over the mantelpiece of Steven Gerrard, like anyone would. It's a pretty impossible task to, void to fill. But it's something I think he's grew into it. And if you speak to anyone who knows him as a footballer and knows him as a person, who spends a lot of time with him, I think no one's shocked at what a captain he's become and what a leader he's become. He's obviously always shown that. I think it's maybe just took fans a little bit longer to realise his potential, and I'm just so happy for him that he's proved everyone wrong, and he's went on to do something that no one has done for 30 years, which is amazing.
Yeah, I just think when, if you remember, Andy, when Hendo got sent off against Man City in the 2014 team, I really believe, like, if he would have, stayed on and played those last 3 games, I think we would have won the league.
Same. I was at that game. I remember crying at that game. I was sitting up at Annie Road, and it went 1-1, and then they scored, and then it was a 3-2 the game, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
When it went to 2-2, I thought they looked like they're going to edge on now, Man City, and then Coutinho popped up, and I remember crying that game, thinking, I think we're actually going to win the league. But I remember then it coming back to me thinking, but we're not going to have Henderson now the next few games. And I don't know if you remember that season, the energy he brought, he was unbelievable. He was just that energizer bunny that just, not only did he not stop running, but, he could pick a pass, he stabilised the game, and he was a big communicator on the pitch as well. And I think, I don't think we're the only ones who think that. You speak to a lot of people, and people say, would things have been different if Henderson was there? And I think they would have been. I really do. He probably had a similar role that he's got now, but with Steven Gerrard in the team, you just didn't really realise it as much. But yeah, I totally agree. Things, I think, would have been a lot different if he hadn't been sent off.
Yeah, go ahead, Daz. Go ahead.
I was just going to say though, you just notice how he is too now. That there's no fans in the stadium. You can actually hear the players, and you can hear Hendo, because a lot of people are like, well, I just he did all he does is the side pass and all this stuff. Like keyboard warriors always say, have a go at Hendo. But you really notice that he is one hell of a player. He's always talking, to every individual. So, yeah, I just don't get some of the criticism that he gets.
Well, I've seen it just on that point. I think LFC TV put out a little clip, a clip, and you could hear him what he's saying. It's unbelievable. I've seen it in the ground now where it's completely flipped. Where if you do get the odd idiot saying anything, there's 10 people telling him to shut up. He's definitely got a firm following now, and his name's getting sung at the end of every game. And I think he acknowledges now that the fans are fully behind him.
Yeah, well deserved everything that he gets, all the accolades that he gets now. I mean, well deserved. I was just thinking back to that season. He really allowed Gerrard to play deeper that season and not do the running, because he did all the running. For in the midfield for those front 3 that were SAS, and man, I remember crying that he got he got suspended too. I was like, man, no, this can't be happening. We're so close.
And I think, that's almost been a little snippet of the type of football we've played when he's not been in the team. Those last 3 games, we missed them so much, we potentially could have won the league. But the games he's not played over the last 2 or 3 years, again, there's not been many where we've been beaten. But he's not featured in any of the games where maybe we've even got draws. It's amazing the record he's got. It's absolutely unbelievable. And again, for England as well. So the role he has in that team, and I think especially now him and Wijnaldum, the running that they do, and I think in the future, I think that's with Thiago in the team as well, having him and Wijnaldum, being that energy and that life and soul of the midfield, and giving the likes of Thiago who can pick a pass. I think things are certainly looking exciting for the future.
Yeah, that 7-2 Aston Villa loss wouldn't have happened under Henderson's watch. That's for sure.
Exactly. There hasn't been that many defeats, but I'm pretty sure, he didn't feature in hardly any of them, which is it's crazy.
Yeah, it would just been 6-2. It just wasn't our day. I mean, I know, Andy, Steve, you probably never watched a match where 3 deflected shots actually go in. Like I've never seen that in my life.
I think we were unlucky for the goals, but at the same time, I think it could have been even more as well. At some point, the defence was shocking, and I think it's probably at how can I say it's. I think they're so good at that high line, what they're doing, that in training, it's almost as if they've got the confidence where the new rule, where as the play can continue and they'll bring it back. It's like they've got this confidence of, we know we'll catch them offside, and they kept on stepping up using the high line, and they were just getting caught out a few times. And hopefully that was a bit of a wake up call to think, actually, you know what, maybe it's not always going to work. So I think, listen, that won't happen for another 30 years, that type of result. So I think just get it out the system now and just crack on.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, a lot of pundits and a lot of, opposing fans, once like Virgil went out, they thought we'd cave in. And I think we've actually, the squad has gotten better, like more like cemented. Like, look, we're not defined by one player.
Totally, yeah. I think it can sometimes, I think an injury like that's one of your main players can act as a bit of a positive, and it can bring people together. And you'd almost think, listen, we've got to do this for Virgil now. And I think, it's a huge loss, isn't it? Let's not beat around the bush. It's a huge loss, but I think having Alisson back as well is a big one. I think if we'd lost Van Dijk and you've got Adrian in goal, it's a lot different than just having Van Dijk out. So, I just hope it brings the team together. It certainly looks like it has. They've got people in like Fabinho who can step into midfield, into centre half, and I think Matip and Gomez are a great partnership as well. So, listen, I'm obviously devastated about Van Dijk, but yeah, I'm like you. I think it can provide a bit of a togetherness and a bit of a feel of, we need to do this with Virgil.
Andy, as we come to the conclusion of our episode, once again, thank you for coming on, and we were going to make sure that everybody knows about the book, and we're going to put a link to the book on our website and all our social media. But maybe you could share the story of how you got the title, because obviously that's an interesting fact about the book as well.
Yeah, so like we spoke about, I've always been a huge Liverpool fan, and when I was 16, I think for my 16th birthday present, my dad got me the birthday present that I wanted, and he paid for a tattoo. And the tattoo was of a liver bird with "You'll Never Walk" tattooed on my calf. Years go on. I joined the Marines, and in Afghanistan was when I was blown up. And like I touched on before, I didn't lose the leg at the time. I chose to have it amputated a couple of years later. And when I go in to have the leg amputated, I wake up 2 hours later, and the surgeon comes around, and I ask him, did the operation go well? And he kind of looks at me and does a bit of a sigh, and he says, "Andy, there's good news, but there's also a little bit of bad news." And again, my heart just sunk, thinking that the bad news was the operation had went wrong or there's been complications. And he looked at me and he said, "Andy, the good news is the operation went really well. I'm really happy with it." I'm thinking, okay, what could possibly be the bad news then? He says, "Well, your tattoo looks a little bit different." And he explained that for him to create a decent stump for me, you had to pull the skin round from the back of the leg so I could walk and run and play football, etc. And in doing so, he'd cut off the word "alone." So the tattoo now reads "You'll Never Walk." So it's a true story. I've got a kind of dodgy looking liver bird who's bent over a little bit. The words "You'll Never Walk" tattooed on my leg, which was ironic, really, considering what I went on to achieve. And when I told people that story and said I was writing a book, they were just kind of like, "That's got to be the title of the book, You'll Never Walk."
That's a brilliant title.
One last question for me, Andy, is there plans for doing a follow-up book later on?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought of a few different ideas with Phil, maybe some sort of a self-help book, maybe, but I don't know. I'm open to ideas and open to have a think about it and stuff. The big thing I'm always trying to do now is with the podcast. I'm thinking about doing the audio book for the podcast that I do.
Oh, nice.
That kind of thing. So I just think that rather than a second book, I'd just continue to kind of like promoting the first one. I'm really proud of it. And so who knows, maybe another book in the future. But for now, I think just going to, get the book onto an audio and just keep promoting it. Like I say, it's probably the proudest thing I've done. I've had messages from all over the world with people who've enjoyed it. People have taken a lot of strength from it. So, I think for now, just keep that.
Well, I appreciate you joining us today, man. It's been, we've been wanting to meet up for a little bit, and it's been an honor to have you on, and a pleasure to read your book, and we're going to continue to highlight it in what we do going forward. And so, all the best, and keep motivating people, man. That's all I can say.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
Yeah, you should get Tom Hardy to do the audio book.
Yeah, I think he might be on my price range a little bit. You might have to settle for my voice, sadly, but who knows?
Well, I just want to leave this because I think this is brilliant as well, where you say, don't ever define me by a tripwire, by war, by a moment of pure chance that saw me blown to pieces. Don't ever define me as being disabled, as being a former Marine. Like, that's just, obviously, you've been through a hell of a lot, and you don't want to be defined by all those things.
I mean, that's what I try and get across in the motivational speeches that I do. I've been lucky enough. I've spoke over in the States, I've spoken in Europe and across the world now, and I try and say to people that, life is different for us all. The one thing we've got in common, though, is life can be unfair. Life is challenging. Bad things happen to good people. Life is tough. No two ways about it. Life is tough. But we're not defined by the challenges life throws at us. We're defined by how we react to them. I think if you can react in a positive way and stay determined and stay hopeful and keep smiling, then that's the thing that's going to define you, not the challenge itself.
Bam, there it is. No, absolutely a great way to end the podcast. But yeah, really do appreciate Andy. Like I said, you can come back anytime and we'll talk about the Reds. Hopefully winning number 20, which I think we will.
I think so too.
And hopefully, me and Steve will be allowed back in the country.
Yeah, well, there's beers here waiting whenever you do.
Well, the travel ban. Now. Yeah, that's see the travel ban. I'm on a travel ban just from the city of Liverpool because every time I go there, I just have too much fun, and they're like, okay, this is not good. This is not good for your health.
Yeah, no, and I'll be when all this craziness is over. I'll be sure to come over the States as well. Like I say, I love coming over there. And, be sure to hook up next time.
Yeah, definitely. Austin's such a great place. We've had so many. Like I said, legends, Peter Moore has come to our pub. Sheamus, the wrestler, has been to our pub. So, I mean, it's a destination location for sure here in the United States. So we'd be glad to host you whenever that opportunity comes.
Sounds good.
Really appreciate Andy. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Definitely. Thanks again, lads. Take care.
Cheers, Andy. Cheers.
Bye now.